You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, everybody? I'm BJ Kissel. This is KCSN Update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast here at KC Sports Network. Thanks for hanging out. Did you know that under Andy Reid, the Chiefs have now qualified for the playoffs 9 times in his 10 seasons? They've also got at least 10 or more wins in 9 of those 10 seasons as well. They've also won 6 straight over the Jags, their opponent, on Saturday. Only one of those 6 games was within 1 possession, but the Jags have won 7 of their last 8 games since losing to the Chiefs back in Week 10, playing much better football, propelling them through that amazing comeback win over the Chargers last week that we've been talking about over the last several days. But we got plenty more nuggets just like that along the way. And Nate Taylor from The Athletic will be joining me here in just a few minutes for our weekly conversation and our 5 burning questions that we have done every Tuesday here on KCSN Update. And we'll break down the Chiefs Jags on Saturday in the AFC Divisional round of the playoffs. But first, a quick word from our partner, DraftKings. The NFL playoff action continues. We're one step closer to Super Bowl 57, and for the NFL divisional round, check out DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, all new and existing customers can take a shot at an even bigger payout with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Boost your NFL winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites on Saturday with an over-under of 51.5. Bills, they're 4.5-point favorites over the Bengals. Cowboys, 2.5-point favorites. Eagles, 7-point favorites. I like the Chiefs and the over. It's pretty much my go-to anyway. I always like taking the over, and I'm always generally going to bet the Chiefs unless I'm hedging my emotions. But last time these teams played, the Chiefs racked up nearly 500 yards of total offense, over 150 on the ground. Patrick Mahomes didn't struggle. The Chiefs did turn the ball over 3 times and still managed to win by 10 points and put up over almost 500 yards. Plus, they're getting McCole Hardman back. I think the Chiefs offense rolls on Saturday. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code KCSN. Again, new customers can bet $5 on the NFL divisional round and get $200 in free bets instantly only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, now it is time to welcome on Nate Taylor from The Athletic. Nate, I don't know how you felt about Wild Card Weekend. I did not have high hopes for there being good football games. I thought we were going to see a few third-string quarterbacks. As much as it hurts my heart as a K-Stater, I did not think that these games were going to be close, and it turned out to be a pretty good stretch of football there in Wild Card Weekend, particularly with the AFC games.
Exactly. And I thought I had given the worst prediction of the entire year, BJ. I thought I had told everybody, hey, I know we're, as Chiefs fans and the audience, I know they're probably more familiar with the Chargers, but hey, that Jacksonville squad, they're getting better. And then at 27-0, I said, I can't believe that. Like, I can't believe this is the worst prediction I've ever had about a playoff game going into it, and then watching the comeback. It was both thrilling and just made me utterly dumbfounded. So that was a great kickoff, considering that, look, Brock Purdy did well, but hey, they're at home, they're the better team. That was evident in the second half. And then, I felt really bad for Skylar Thompson because he was throwing dimes, BJ. Like, he had the plays and the willingness to be daring, which is what you need, in the playoffs when the competition is just so high. And look, I thought Josh Allen let sort of the Dolphins hang around with some turnovers, with some, trying to do too much with the football. It was a really fun weekend, except for last night. Obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday morning. It is wild that it's like I wanted to turn my TV off on Saturday night because I'm just like, look, man, it's 27-0. I don't want to put my wife through this. We don't need to do this. And then little by little, it's just like, wow, okay, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, ton of credit to someone like Josh Allen, who plays for the Jaguars. They're elite pass rusher. And then last night to be like, man, I know it's Tom Brady, but come on, like, they can't block Micah Parsons. And like, I know this. And so I turned away early in the fourth quarter. I was just like,
yeah,
it's been an odd season for the Buccaneers, and I'm glad it's over. I'm glad for Tom Brady, Mike Evans, and everybody that season had to be extinguished yesterday.
Yeah, it was pretty tough to watch. You don't know what's going to be the future with Tom Brady and at least Chiefs fans and myself personally. I've got a mixed emotions on watching that, because part of me is like, yeah, and part of me wants him to like Patrick Mahomes have another shot at him. I wanted him to go on. I wanted Patrick Mahomes to beat him. So, and I've said this before. So in 15 years, when we're having the argument over who the greatest quarterback is, I would say the guy broke every record there is and won X number of Super Bowls. And they're gonna be like, well, he never beat Tom Brady when it mattered. Like, well, that's why I was so angry when they lost a couple years ago. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm gonna selfishly in 15 years, I got nothing to respond with in that conversation with some random dude at a bar somewhere.
Now the response is, I'm sorry, have you ever seen Tom Brady have the best game in a losing outcome? Because sometimes I go back and forth, BJ, and I say that's the best game he's ever played, based on the circumstances, on the idea that it's, set hike, immediate pressure, and we're down, so I have to throw the ball all the time. And he only got sacked 3 times in that game. Josh Allen with a more intact offensive line. It's not fully intact, but a more intact one than obviously the makeshift offensive line the Chiefs had in Super Bowl 55. He got sacked 7 times, and that was a squad that didn't feature nearly the talent of pass rushers that Tampa Bay had that year. And then, BJ, all I have to say is, look, man, he was parallel to the ground and threw an absolute dive that was dropped by Darrell Williams. We don't need to include the second part of how the play ended, but I mean, he was parallel to the ground and threw a dime, threw a perfect ball 30 yards away while parallel to the ground.
This is, man, I've never thought about this take till right now, but I would put up Patrick Mahomes' career highlight video up against any quarterback in NFL history already with what we've seen with some of the crazy plays that he's had that we forget about a lot of them. I still think the best throw that I've ever seen from Patrick Mahomes was his rookie year in the preseason against the Titans.
Yes. And people
throw to DeMarcus Robinson that Marcus Peters loses it on the sideline. I think Kevin Dodd actually got hurt on the play for the Titans when it was Patrick Mahomes rolling to the right and just throw back across his body like a 45, 50-yard dime. And we were all just like, oh, what a lucky throw, not realizing you were just giving us a glimpse of what we were about to witness for the next 20 years. But that was the one where it's like, okay, this is not just a fluke. We got a whole highlight reel full of those. We could do a whole hour-long highlight.
We really
package
could
already.
Yeah, we really could.
Right. We could sit here and talk about Patrick Mahomes all day, but I'm going to get to the 5 burning questions before we start talking into these, and I have to figure out new questions on the fly. All right. The first one, Nate, what concerns you most going into Saturday's matchup against the Jags? I mentioned it off the top of the show. The Jags team the Chiefs faced in Week 10 versus the team that they're going to face on Saturday, 2 different teams. They're playing much better football. They had lost, I think, 5 of 6 coming into that matchup against the Chiefs. They've won 7 of 8. I've got a take that I shared with Matt Miller yesterday on KCSN Update that I'll wait.
Okay. I heard. Okay. Don't worry. Right. I heard.
But what concerns you most about the Jaguars going into this matchup?
2 things. One is the amazing stat, the absolutely jaw-dropping stat that Trevor Lawrence has never lost on a Saturday. And just to remind everybody, games on a Saturday, y'all. So just keep that in mind.
Why even play?
Just
hand him the trophy.
Now, I understand people can say, well, the odds are in the Chiefs' favor because he can't do it forever. But ask the Chargers. But the honest thing that makes me most concerned is Doug Peterson demonstrated in the second half that they're not going to go away quietly. And so what that means is if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I walk into today's team meeting or yesterday's team meeting. I think the team meeting was actually Monday because obviously you got to move everything up with the game being played on Saturday. I walk in and I say, get ready to play 4 downs every possession. I don't care what time it is in the game. I don't care the down and distance. I don't care the situation. If we get a lead, they are not going to go away quietly. This is not a Broncos team that's going to try some new stuff. But if it's 4th and 9, they're going to punt. This is not a team like the Chargers, who is somewhat risk averse this year. I think partly because they trusted their defense better this year than last year. And hey, that is a defensive-minded head coach. Doug Peterson is offensive-minded, and he just proved to his players, we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it, even when we're down 27-0. I'm going to make adjustments. I'm going to put you in a chance to succeed. We're going to build momentum, and we're not going to stop. So if I'm the Chiefs defense, I think you have to be ready to play 4 downs pretty much on any situation, because he kind of proved it in the first matchup, BJ. Oh, y'all want to take the coin toss? Cool. We've been waiting to do this all season. And it was a onside kick that the Chiefs really didn't see coming, because it's a week 11 game. It's just another game in a long season. But he proved to you that day, and he proved on Saturday, hey, all right, you want to stay in this personnel group? You want to be in this formation? Great. All right, we're going to call a timeout. I'm going to run even a better play. And it's going to end your season. So if he's in that opportunity, if he has that chance with Trevor Lawrence, give a lot of credit to Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, obviously Travis Etienne. Like, they got enough guys to where, hey, if you give them 4 downs to get 10 yards, they have a chance to make this game very, very interesting in the fourth quarter.
I think looking at that first matchup, besides the fact the Chiefs had 3 turnovers and they had the onside kick, the Jags were gifted 4 extra possessions just on those 4 plays and still lost by 2 possessions in this game. But my take coming out of watching the Jags and the Chargers, and not to take anything, I'm not saying he wasn't good, but Trevor Lawrence, I felt like the most impressive aspect of the comeback and everything they did wasn't Trevor Lawrence escaping the pocket and throwing on the run and making all these crazy plays. He simply got the ball into the hands of Christian Kirk.
Yep.
Travis Etienne in the running game did really well. I thought they did a good job continuing to run the football, even though that they were losing, picking up chunks of yards. But Evan Ingram's catch and run, like the 49-yard after I was immediately Googled Evan Ingram contract situation. Like, how many years that dude just ran away from defensive back and made some money. And he's on a 1-year, $9 million deal for anybody who watched that game, because that was impressive. And there's not an offensive coordinator or passing game analyst, anybody that couldn't watch that play or watch that game and not walk away with all kinds of cool things you could do with a player like Evan Ingram. So curious to see what he's going to get in the offseason. But yeah, to your point, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, it was the playmakers around Trevor Lawrence that I thought were significantly more impressive. I could be wrong. I'm not Mitch Schwartz breaking down offensive line play and stuff like this. But what I can tell you is I saw more free rushers coming from the Chargers than you normally see in an NFL game. And I don't know if that's Trevor Lawrence not setting protections correctly, miscommunication up front with the offensive line, wherever that disconnect is. There are just a handful of things. You don't see it with Patrick Mahomes. You don't see it with Josh Allen and some of these guys. And just combining that with the fact that under pressure, Trevor Lawrence is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Everybody's worse under pressure, but he is like, his PFF grade is like 29. If you can just get a little bit of pressure on him, he gets the ball out quick. It's like 3rd fastest to attempt. So he likes to get the ball out faster. If you take away that first read and he has to hold on to the ball, it's not good for him. And so those things combined, where he just wants to get the ball to his playmakers, all that stuff, Steve Spagnuolo being so creative and so different thing, free rushers, negative plays. I just don't see that kind of, those kinds of mistakes and those issues that he has not being completely magnified at Arrowhead in that environment, knowing that he's looking across the way against Patrick Mahomes and they've got to steal possessions any way they can.
Right.
I just think it's a bad mix for a young quarterback, and the issues that he's shown that he can get through, he can develop past those. But if you're not good with pressure around you and all the free rushers, at least just from watching that I saw, it's like Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive quality control guys, like they're writing those looks down and they're going to get some free looks, and that could lead to some negative plays, and they need as many possessions as possible.
Yeah. And I'm sure they've learned this lesson, but Jacksonville doesn't need to start slow this Saturday. It's one thing when the offense realizes they can't run the ball, They don't have their best receiver, which really is Mike Williams. It's just unfortunate, but that's the truth right now in this season, or this past season for them. Keenan Allen can still be effective in the scheme if you scheme it up a certain way, but he doesn't have the same ability he used to have in yards after the catch. And so one of the big issues that I feel like wasn't exploited really in the second half from the Chargers was yards after catch, getting the ball to playmakers in space or in one-on-one situations on the perimeter. That was something that the Chiefs really exploited the Jaguars in the first matchup. It's getting Kadarius Toney looks in the flats. It's finding ways for Marquez Valdes-Scantling to run free in zones. When his speed is obviously needs to be taken into account, and then of course for everything the Chargers have, they just don't have Travis Kelce, and so they don't have an easy release in the middle of the field the way Patrick Mahomes will have, we assume, on Saturday. So speed is what has been one of the kryptonites to the Jaguars defense this season, and then forcing them to rally and tackle. Because of the things you said, BJ, they really got to pin their ears back and just really go for it. And I give them all the credit because they made all the necessary plays on defense to get that done. But when the Chargers missed the field goal early in the fourth quarter, you could feel everything sort of swing, because it's like that's probably the best set of plays that the Chargers have left based on their talent and based on just their quarterback sort of under duress. I wonder if the Jaguars realize they need to be ultra aggressive from start to finish. And if you lose by 17, I will still give you a ton of credit and a ton of respect, because that is what's required. Because, as you said earlier, BJ, they legitimately stole 4 possessions where the Chiefs did not score, and yet they still lost by 10. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be ultra aggressive, in my opinion, knowing that the matchup doesn't favor you, knowing that you're not the home team, and knowing that this is a rested Chiefs team that is really healthy compared to everybody else in the AFC.
It's funny that both teams could, I don't want to say the Chiefs prefer, this is tongue in cheek, obviously, for anybody listening or watching, but both teams might just rather, spot the other team 10 points. Seems like the Chiefs always kind of play down. They always give the other team a little bit of lead. And then what we saw from the Jaguars. And to your point, you got to give a ton of credit to the Jaguars to get to this point. It's not they're just happy to be here at this point, although that part of that kind of comes into my mind. It's a team that was 3-14 last year. And now they're in the AFC Divisional round. They beat the Chargers. They are ahead of schedule for what, at least from the outside and reading about what they all had to deal with Urban Meyer, for Trevor Lawrence being a young quarterback, and what kind of mess that must have been for the way that everyone talks about what that experience was like. And it's kind of like, we all forget about that 1 year with Urban Meyer. But shout out to Doug Peterson. Not completely surprised that he's been able to turn it around. With the success that he's had. I think people in Kansas City know that, especially his coaching staff knows that. But we're going to get to more on what we can take away from the last matchup. I'm going to ask Nate Taylor about Andre Cisco and what we might see from that scenario from the last time these guys played right after this. All right, welcome back to KCS An Update. I'm BJ Kissel, hanging out with the Athletics' Nate Taylor. Nate, second burning question I've got for you. How much can we all take away from that Week 10 win that the Chiefs had, 27-17? We talked about it briefly, but what kinds of things can you take away, either as a fan going into watching this game, mentally preparing for it, or even the players or coaches?
So a couple things. I'm going to say actually 3. The Chiefs offensive line really, really matters moving forward. This is why analysts, reporters like me felt like they had one of the best offensive lines in the league. They are all healthy. They were all given a week off. Now's the time to prove, if Patrick Mahomes has time, you can go down the field on Jacksonville. Their defense is solid. I wouldn't call it, great at this point. They are, as you said earlier, still learning. They've made so much progress. But I think for Patrick Mahomes to take a couple deep shots in this game, particularly early, right? If they get near midfield, use that offensive line, use those 2 tight end sets to take some shots downfield, which leads me to my next point, which is speed is the issue. The Chargers have no speed, guys. It's amazing watching that offense, knowing that Justin Herbert has to raise the floor so much. And there's only so much a quarterback can do because it's an ultimate team sport. But go ahead.
probably the reason that, just breaking news earlier as we were recording, that Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator, and their passing game coordinator, Shane Day, were both let go. So I'm assuming some information is going to come out that they were the ones that put Mike Williams on the field, that they become the fall guys for what ends up happening when your top best offensive weapon is not available in the playoffs because you wanted him playing in a game and a time that didn't matter.
And Mike Williams wins one-on-one matchups. I mean, look, we one of the best highlights from Kadarius Toney this season is him elevating over two defenders, and Mike Williams could do that for the Chargers as well. But speed and misdirection is the thing that has bothered that's bothered the Jaguars for much of this season. Misdirection, jet sweeps, end arounds, rolling the pocket one direction to throw across the field. We've seen Mahomes do that several times in pretty significant games. You can really set the Jaguars for something to then go somewhere else with the ball. So I think that's the two things that the offense can really exploit that maybe the Chargers could not at a high level. And lastly, this might be the last time we get to say it, guys. I think it will be the last time we get to say it, that Chris Jones does not have a sack in the postseason, but this matchup is squarely in favor of Chris Jones. The Chargers did a really nice job of simulating pressure and obviously disguising things for Trevor Lawrence to sort of work through post-snap. You ain't got to do that a ton if Chris Jones is just winning up front. And in the first matchup, he was absolutely dominant, and it led to one-on-one opportunities for guys like Carlos Dunlap, for Colin Saunders. And now we know that, to your credit, even though he was a little bit later than we all anticipated, George Karlaftis is a real player now. He is a starting level player.
Sacks. I am counting playoff sacks to his attempt.
To his rookie year, yes.
To tie. I'll say to tie Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas, yeah.
Needs 4 sacks in 3 games.
This man will be,
or he can just do it on Saturday.
I mean, this man will be an international star if he gets 4 sacks in this postseason run. But you do know that that's what it's going to be, right? The Jaguars are going to say, like, we have to beat Chris Jones. And Chris Jones just might beat him anyway because he's just the better interior player compared to what the Jaguars present at the guard position and at center. So I think there's going to be a couple times where Chris Jones, if you know it's a passing situation, if it's 3rd and 8 or hell, if it's 4th and 5, which I anticipate Doug Peterson will probably go for it. These are the plays where Chris Jones brings his best moves, the quick hands, the explosion, the explosiveness coming off the snap. I think this will be the game where Chris Jones finally gets a postseason sack, and it'll be deservedly so because he has a huge advantage in this matchup, which is differently than if they would play the Bills or the Bengals, if the Chiefs were to move on after Saturday's game.
And there's a lot you could do with formations to put him in those one-on-one situations. And that's the beauty of being an interior guy. Is like you can walk Nick Bolton, you can walk Willie Gay up or Leo Chanel, one of those guys, and line them up in an A gap or B gap. And you could dictate what the matchups are going to look like. And they have to be one-on-one, so everybody's accounted for. And so there's different ways that they can free Chris Jones up. I'm going to have to figure out my 4th burning question since you kind of just talked through it with Chris Jones. But don't worry. We're just on the fly. We've done this before.
Yeah, we've done this before.
A huge thing. All right, let's move on to the 3rd question. And this is one that I didn't, when the matchup first popped up, I did not remember, but it wasn't one of the first things I thought about until Matt Miller actually mentioned it. And that's Andre Cisco. At the last time these two teams met, one of the bigger storylines coming out of that game was the Jag safety and some of the shots that he took towards Juju Smith-Schuster on one, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling just a few plays later on the same drive, kind of headhunting a little bit, cheap shots, whatever you want to call it. Chiefs fans obviously felt a very strong certain way about it. What kind of aftermath from that do you see coming? First time his name called, do you think you're going to hear audible boos? Do you think Chiefs fans are going to be that engaged with that storyline from last time they played that you notice the first time something happens? Because I know from a player's schematic standpoint, they may attack him or do something to confuse. Like there could be some stuff there, but that won't necessarily be as noticeable in the moment to us when we're watching as, hearing the crowd booing, the first time he makes a play or something.
Yeah, I think fans are I think they're obviously invested, and I'm sure they remember that play because it really impacted Juju Smith-Schuster's season. He would be a 1,000-yard receiver if not for that injury, if not for being in the league's concussion protocol and then missing the previous week, and then really having to be eased back into the flow of the offense in December. So there's going to be a play or two where I think Juju will, be in his role in the zone, in the intermediate area. So maybe there is a one-on-one opportunity where, Cisco and him are going to have another chance to duel. What I would ask Cisco to do is just keep your head up, form tackle, do the best you can. There's nothing wrong with being physical and trying to be intimidating. That's the beauty of the position. It's one of the best parts of being a safety is you want to come in here, you're going to have to earn it. Now, it's not the 1970s where you could just clothesline people in slow-mo on NFL films. But I do want
him up on a jacked up segment on NFL Network.
Yes.
If anybody remembers that segment.
So look, he played particularly well in the second half. In Saturday's game, I think he's getting better as a safety, with still understanding the mindset. If I was to be in the room, I would say let's have like 3 plays. Let's not be overly aggressive in trying to attack one specific defender, but we do want to have 3 plays where we sort of pressure his eyes. And what I mean by that is, do I take MVS here because he's running through my area of the field, whether it's single high or 2 high, and then there's something to be breaking off of that, or there's a secondary move or, a double move basically. And then I think there's some other plays where we can get him on the perimeter in a jet sweep motion where you think we're going one way, we come back the other way, it's to your area of the field. And hey, it's a one-on-one matchup with you trying to make a tackle in the open field. And then lastly, if it gets to this point in the game, we saw what Isaiah Pacheco did to the Broncos in a 4-minute drive in Denver. We're going to run right at you. And, if we need a first down to end the game or to seal victory, I'll be very eager to see a rested up, hard running Isaiah Pacheco against, Andre Cisco, who's got to make the tackle. It's so funny. We get to the highest heights of this sport, and it really comes down to, hey, can you make the tackle? Can you do it consistently over and over and over again for 60 minutes when your season is pretty much on the line? And so it might not be Juju. It might not be MVS. It might come down to, hey, we're running, either a zone play or we're just going to get in, semi-modernized I formation under center and line it up, and we're coming right at you. Trey Smith's going to get to the second level, which means if he takes care of the linebacker, it's me and you. And so it's not glamorous. It's not pretty, but it is the sport at the highest level in January where you do have to run the football to keep the defense honest. And sometimes breaking that tackle means winning or losing.
Yeah. I love the fact that it doesn't matter if you're talking about high school football, college football, or NFL. It's like tackle, convert on third down, don't turn the ball over. Like, to me, I think if the Chiefs win the turnover possession battle in the next 3 games, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think they will play well enough in these games that if they're not giving extra possessions to these other teams, that they will win the Super Bowl. And you can't convince me otherwise after I understand the Bengals, the Bills. It's going to be the most difficult test. I know the Eagles are their own thing. Or the 49ers.
The 49ers.
We've seen the Chiefs play.
Whew, can the 49ers stay healthy? It's going to be – they have to play 4 hard games in January or in February. So I'm fascinated to see if they can hold up to get to the Super Bowl. But if they're healthy, my goodness, that's going to be – it'll be quite the level jumping for the Cowboys to be like, hey, we want a playoff game, to be like, oh, my God, these guys are so good. Like, they're going from – basically rookie mode to all Madden in like a week, and they got to be ready for that. And it's on the road as well, so you involve travel and all that.
Going to be a fun game to watch, though, because with Brock Purdy just being the right guy in the right situation, just make a few plays, don't turn it over. You're going to be an absolute legend with that defense and what they've got going on. And let's move on to the 4th burning question, Nate. And you kind of mentioned this earlier. The question originally was Chris Jones get his first career playoff sack. And it was kind of a D-line combo question, because the other one I was going to ask you, and I'm making a point for anyone listening to this, listen to the other shows. Yes, I'm going to bring this up on all of the shows. Frank Clark, right now, fifth all time in postseason sacks. A question for you is, I guess, I don't say what's more likely. I'm figuring this out on the fly, but I want to open up the discussion about George Karlaftis and the rookie sack record rising up those charts, along with Frank Clark rising up those charts and Chris Jones getting on those postseason sack charts. But for anybody listening for the first time, Frank Clark right now is 5th in NFL postseason history in sacks with 11. He is only 5 sacks behind Willie McGinnis for tying for the most sacks in NFL postseason history. That would take a hell of a run in the playoffs for anybody. And so don't know if that's realistic, but if he gets 1 sack against the Jags on Saturday, he'll tie Reggie White for 4th most all time. If he gets 1.5 sacks, he'll tie for 3rd most with Terrell Suggs. He needs 3.5 to tie Bruce Smith for 2nd all time. Unbelievable company that we're talking about with Frank Clark. And I'm going to continue to talk about it. But I guess, which of these, who do you see moving up the ranks more with the amount of attention that we know Chris Jones is going to get, the way that we've seen Frank Clark just come to life in the playoffs, especially the last 5 minutes of games? Again, that Super Bowl stretch, Frank Clark had a sack in the final 4 minutes of every playoff game en route to the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, including the Super Bowl win. And then George Karlaftis moving up the rookie franchise record. Which of those do you see moving quicker, I guess?
Here's what I think would be the ideal scenario for the Chiefs for Saturday's game to disrupt Trevor Lawrence, who, again, has not lost on a Saturday.
You love that stat.
I love that stat. I mean, it's high school, college, and pro. But here's what the Chiefs and what Chiefs fans should sort of set the standard, in my opinion. Chris Jones should get about 1.5 sacks to 2 sacks. I'm gonna say the Jaguars have a better offensive line than the Raiders, but it's not as wide as you think it is.
And he gets it out quick. We talked about it earlier. Trevor Lawrence, 3rd fastest time to attempt of any quarterback in the league. But if you do get pressure, he gets rattled. He gets a little shook. And I think we saw that.
Yeah. And I believe you can look this up for me, BJ. I believe Chris Jones had a sack in the first matchup earlier this season.
Yeah, he had sack and a half.
Sack and a half, because he split it with Carlos Dunlap. That's correct. So I think Frank has a chance to get a sack in this game. Like, I think success for him is setting the edge on Travis Etienne, which means you don't get tackles. I think sometimes fans get too enamored with the statistics versus, like, what are you actually doing to influence the play? So if they're going to run to your side of the football, Frank, and this has always been his case, has been very good at setting the edge, making sure the flow goes towards his inside hip, which allows Nick Bolton or Willie Gay or Leo Chenal to be involved in the play. And so he can withstand, getting 2 tackles, but having a bigger sort of impact on the team's performance from a rushing standpoint. And then something I think he's gotten better at this year is not losing rush lane integrity. It's one of the things that actually hurt them towards the end of the year, where I think you could argue maybe he was chasing sacks because he realized that, the secondary wasn't super duper consistent or reliable. So that puts pressure on the defensive line, where it's like, I got to get home. I got to make a play because, we're giving up yardage, behind me to where I don't feel like I have to be super duper sound. But if Frank is healthy, which, as we said last week, he had a minor groin injury in the season finale against the Raiders, but he's had 2 weeks off. He will be in uniform. I think the standard for him is, hey, set the edge, get a sack, make an impactful play. He's actually been pretty good at getting tackles for losses towards the second half of the season. And then for Karlaftis and Carlos Dunlap, I'm not requiring y'all to get a sack. But because of what BJ said earlier about his quick release being Trevor Lawrence, the Chiefs, BJ, led the league in the regular season for batted balls at the line of scrimmage. If you know it's 3rd and 4 and he's going to get the ball out quick, rush through your lanes and get at least 1 arm to maybe 2 hands up to sort of influence the pass or to disrupt the throwing window George Karlaftis has been excellent at that really for much of the season. And Carlos Dunlap leads the league in batted balls. I believe he has 8 in the regular season. So if you continue to do that, that's a negative play. That's an incompletion. The offense does not move, which means that, hey, maybe that 3rd and 4 becomes 4th and 4. And now, Trevor Lawrence feels the pressure to obviously get this first down because obviously they know the Chiefs offense is capable of scoring 30 points, even with, some high risk, low reward moments on their side of the equation. I just think that this is really Chris's chance to sort of have that memorable postseason performance outside of the Super Bowl victory in the 4th quarter against the 49ers, where he had three pass breakups where he got his hands up because guess what? Jimmy Garoppolo was like, I need to get the ball out quick to George Kittle or to, or Deebo Samuel, and Chris Jones obviously influenced that result. But I think this is a chance for him to get a sack or two, for Frank to get a sack, and then for Carlos Dunlap and George Karlaftis to just do their roles, do their job. And sometimes that means setting the edge, getting your hands up, making sure that those easy completions to the perimeter are not as easy as they were last week against the Chargers.
This is a game that if Trevor Lawrence isn't spot on, and we talk about like affecting the throwing windows, make him hitch a little bit and throw not necessarily in rhythm quite as much, where if he's throwing to Christian Kirk and he throws it off his back shoulder on a slant or an over route, and he's not able to hit him in stride to where he keeps his momentum going, he gets tackled. It just cost him 10 or 15 yards with how good those guys are with yards after the catch. Years ago, when I was at Bleach Report, I was trying to write an article, and it was a bad one. But I was trying to liken quarterback's accuracy with yards after the catch as a statistic. And we've seen it with Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley, some of these quarterbacks throwing those swing passes to running backs. If you don't hit them in stride, it's a 2-yard gain at best or a loss of yardage. I don't think even like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, like they're so good at hitting those guys in stride where they can catch and run and not reach back, spin around, or just throw off their back hip. Like you hit them in stride. Trevor Lawrence absolutely is going to have to hit these guys in strikes. If they're not picking up a ton of yards after the catch, I just don't think they're going to be able to methodically move the ball down the field as aggressive as Steve Spagnuolo is and all of that. But right after this next quick break, we're going to get Nate's thoughts on Doug Peterson and what he might try and pull off in this game and what we've seen from Doug in the past and some of his comments over the past week. Getting ready for the matchup against the Chiefs. Doug knows what he is in for, and then we'll get Nate's prediction for the game on Saturday. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to KCSN Update. I'm BJ Kissel, joined by the Athletics' Nate Taylor. We have gotten 4 of our 5 burning questions with Nate down. Nate, last one before we get your prediction. Talked about a little bit earlier, the first time these teams met, Doug Peterson goes with the onside kick, steals an extra possession. When Doug Peterson spoke with the media, talked about needing extra possessions, doing everything they can. You can't just go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, and he knows that. So what kind of shenanigans, what kind of fake punts, onside kicks? You mentioned it earlier, the number of 4th down package plays that Steve Spagnuolo is going to need on the call sheet. It's probably a lot more than he's used to of getting ready, knowing the Jags can't just go possession for possession with this team.
Let it go, Doug. Let it all go. There's no tomorrow, Doug. There's no Sunday without Saturday. Let it all go. Man, I really would go for it on every 4th down if it's not 4th and 12, in the first quarter in your own territory. I really would. I love the idea that, like, obviously Doug Peterson is known most for the Philly special, which is, hey, a misdirection play that is built off of, like, obviously his time with Andy Reid, them really scouring the earth to find, hey, this high school team did it. We can do it too. Hey, it's structurally sound. It's easy on the quarterback and the in the skill position players. Is there going to be a double pass involved in this game, or a pass from a skill position player? You can probably tell the guys, hey, fellas, if Travis Etienne has the ball on a quote unquote zone read, he might pass it. This is going to be fun because the Chiefs have 3 rookie cornerbacks. That is a situation that they have put themselves in. Now, Trent McDuffie is the most talented. He's been so good. I think the last step for him is to, catch the balls that are interceptable. which is something he has still, struggled with over the latter half of the season. But I wonder if Doug Peterson will try to manipulate the eyes of Trent McDuffie or Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson, depending on who's on the field, to say, hey, we've shown you this formation and this play in all your film study. And you know what Christian Kirk gonna do. He gonna run a slant, or he gonna run an end or something, and then he's gonna break off of it and run either a double move, or there's going to be some element of surprise that you just can't anticipate. So this was really where it comes down to knowing the down, the distance, and the situation of where you are in the game and what the scoreboard is trying to inform you, right? If the Jaguars are down 4 in the third quarter, they're not punting. Or I wouldn't believe that they would punt. I just don't think it would happen. Or, hey, if this is third down, if it's 3rd and 4, be in the mindset that, hey, they might want to try something twice, which means, hey, if it doesn't work on this play, we're going to go to something else on 4th down. This is really going to test the mental acuity of these rookies in the secondary. And obviously, Justin Reed, who's been one of the best safeties over the second half of the season, and Juan Thornhill, who's now gotten back on track over the last few weeks, getting some interceptions, him being really well and showing that range and coverage. The last point I'll make, BJ, you gotta tackle.
Yeah.
You got to tackle, because sometimes he's going to do some razzle-dazzle nonsense, and it's going to put you in a one-on-one matchup. And this is where the Chiefs are so excellent in the red zone. They do all these funky, unorthodox, hilarious stuff, and it's all to just get you to just be this much out of leverage or this much out of position, so that, hey, now that one-on-one becomes a little bit easier because our guy has the ball and he has a lane to the end zone or the lane to the first down marker. Justin Reed, really good at tackling. Juan Thornhill, hey, you want to make a name for yourself? You want to improve that stock as a free agent? Be really good ranging, and then also come down and make the tackle. Help out these cornerbacks as best you can, because you just know, BJ. Like, they honestly should do it on the first drive. I really believe they should be like, let's inform them on opening drive. This is how the game gonna go. Hey, 1st and 10, we're gonna run the ball, and then everything after that is fireworks.
I think it'll be opening kickoff. It'll be like one of those reverse passes, or they might fake it and like the guy comes around. Like there's gonna be something. Play like there's no tomorrow, because like there's really the Jaguars have so much. Sound like Jimmy McGinty.
Yes, the Jaguars have so
like there's
much.
No tomorrow.
The Jaguars have so much to benefit from this game, both in the moment and moving towards next season. Because this is, you want to know what it's like to play a championship caliber of football? You're going to see it on Saturday. And why not make the game really, really weird? And just, again, Doug, if you've been saving that play and you didn't show it in the Chargers game, then why are you going to wait around 8 months for training camp to reinstall it in your playbook? Just show it now. See if it rattles the Chiefs defense, see if it gets them to sort of overcommit to certain things. But yeah, I just love, from a defensive standpoint, it's going to be so much mental as much as it is physical, because I think Doug Peterson is going to force that type of action on their side from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to need to spend a lot of time making sure the Chiefs DBs are locked in for this game. I agree with you. I think whether it's Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill obviously coming up from the safety position and tackling, for all the reasons that I've mentioned throughout this show, as far as the yards after the catch or what worry me for guys like Christian Kirk. But going back to the first matchup, Christian Kirk had 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards, and several of those plays were on L'Jarius Sneed.
Correct.
They were on the Chiefs' best cornerback, or arguably the best cornerback, along with Trent McDuffie. And so as much as I want those guys to get their hands on the ball and knock them down, I want their focus to be tackle, stay right on their hip and tackle them. If you give up a couple of plays, but you tackle them right away and you make them run a few 2, 3, 4 extra plays on that drive, you give yourself a chance for Trevor Lawrence to do something stupid, to try to get some pressure, get him off his first read. And then don't take for granted the fact that Trevor Lawrence is a great athlete.
Yeah.
And that if he gets out and runs, you can't do that either. So a lot of the 2-man, those kinds of things where you have safeties back, you can have more protection on the back end to rally and tackle and kind of do that shell defense where you just don't let him get the big play, kind of squeeze him in there to come up and tackle. It is going to be Juan Thornhill. And we've given him so much credit throughout his career for his instincts and his ability to get his hands on the ball. But to your point, this is one of those games where, from a tackling standpoint, if the safeties tackle well, I don't think the Jags are going to Yeah, they're gonna win. If the Chiefs don't turn it over offensively and the safeties tackle well, they're going to win this game.
Yeah, and it's just really cool to know that like this is why coaching matters. You know, I was a bit critical of the Jaguars in the offseason for giving Christian Kirk $18 million a year.
Yeah.
But they've developed Christian Kirk into being a reliable guy that you trust on third down in come from behind situations. I mean, honestly, he was excellent when they played the Cowboys earlier this year, and he was really good in the second half. Zay Jones, you know, was an okay player. He was an average player with the Raiders. He's better now. That extends to coaching, and obviously the biggest example of that being like, hey, Trevor, you've thrown 4 interceptions, and you're still going to play well. We're still going to find ways for you to play well in a very adverse situation. So it's a really good coaching staff, and Doug Peterson deserves a lot of credit. And now it's about, you know, getting the guys to believe. And I think really early on, hey, I know it's Arrowhead. I know we didn't really play our best, even though, like, you know, we presented some problems for the Chiefs, but we didn't play our best the last time we were here. In order to spark belief, in order to ignite true emotion towards, you know, playing your best for your teammate, I think it's upon the coaching staff to sort of say, hey, this is the best stuff we have, and we're not wasting any time. Like, let's just go out there and see if we can go toe-to-toe, if we can level the playing field in some extent from a coaching schematic standpoint, or just the element of surprise that, you know, the playoffs present to you. You know, the reason why playoff games are so fascinating is because now the element of surprise is here. You've had 18 weeks to see what we can do.
Yeah.
And we're so good, we're going to give you even more stuff to think about in the moment.
We're going to mark this timestamp to make sure that we keep this receipt. What kind of, if you project, give us a little guesstimate, the Jags going to run a trick play. What is it? Is it going to be a non-quarterback throwing a pass? Is it going to be a double pass, flea flicker, or a combination of both?
I love a flea flicker. Because what you would tell, you know, it depends on if you're in zone coverage, obviously. If the cornerbacks are looking into the backfield, I do sort of love a flea flicker. Now, that will test Juan Thornhill most likely in that situation. Can I hedge and say I love flea flicker just above somebody else is going to attempt to pass for the Jaguars, not named Trevor Lawrence at some point in the game.
Okay, so we'll say over under 1.5 trick plays.
Yes,
and we're defining trick plays as double pass, double reverse, not just a single like a jet sweep kind of deal, but like a double reverse. And somebody else throwing the ball. 1.5. You taking the over under?
If I'm the quality control coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we spamming the hell out of this thing. Like,
let's get weird.
Let's get super weird. Like, coach, I think we need to run 1 a quarter. I'm not joking. Like, we need to run a trick play per quarter.
Every other drive, I get 8 drives. So you're saying four trick plays.
Hey, if you convert on 4th down, obviously that gets you a new set of downs. Like you said, it takes time off the clock. Maybe it sort of shrinks the possessions for the Chiefs as well. Yeah, man. I mean, I would be so, like, if I was in the Jacksonville Jaguars facility, I would be so happy because you know what's coming. And that should spark true innovation, true outside the box thinking. And it should really motivate you to be like, look, no one is expecting us to win. We do not have the better quarterback. We don't have the better coach. But you know what we can do? We get to call the plays. We get to dictate how the defense is influenced. And sometimes that is to your advantage, even when you're, you know, supposedly the weaker team. Like, we're going to tell our guys on defense, hey, we know we're in for a long day. In order to help y'all, we're going to try to go for it on 4th down so that you're not on the field for 60 snaps. What if we can limit their snaps to about 55? You know, just it allowed, like, the playoffs give you a week to really think about matchups and obviously the counter punches you can present. And I just think for Doug, because he has a track record of it, like, this is why you're really good at this, man. Like, you know, you did this to Tom Brady with Nick Foles. Like, you should just be like, I honestly would just be banging on the table or the desk or whatever. You know, I would be in the coach's office just being like, Coach, 1 a quarter. We beat, like, you already showed you can do this with Tom Brady running RPOs with Nick Foles. Like, there's just, It's there for the taking. Don't be willing. Like, don't overthink this. Just be bold. Be bold because that's what is going to be required to be Patrick Mahomes, because you don't have Tom Brady. You do not have Joe Burrow. This is only Trevor Lawrence's second playoff game. Like, let's be bold, man. And if we lose, we lose. But we didn't lose going out like some punks.
Yeah. On a completely related note, I was just looking up the stats. Jags punter Logan Cook never incompleted a pass in his career. He's 3 for 3.
Somebody get that to Dave Tobe pronto. It's
been 3 years since he's attempted a pass, but he was 2 for 2 back in 2019.
Somebody get it to Dave Tobe. Like, this is funny because, like, there's so much excitement if I think about it from the Jags standpoint. There's so much, like, headaches on the Chiefs side where it's like, where our special teams has been the worst in the league. Honestly, guys, from an EPA standpoint, the Chiefs special teams has been the worst all season. And we got a bunch of rookies who have never played in a playoff game before. The amount of headaches, the amount of things you have to like think about, because yes, you know who Doug Peterson is.
And you're going up against a team, you're like, they're gonna try some shit. All right, let's just they're gonna try some stuff. Just make sure you're prepared for it, along with just, you know, keeping your emotions in check.
Correct.
I'm not gonna name the player, but there was a young receiver for the Chiefs years ago before a playoff game. I was on the sideline. I walked by and I was just like, how's it going, man? And he's like, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm going to throw up. He's just running on the sideline. Like, it's like a half an hour before kick, 45 minutes before kick. And I was like, you'll be all right. You forget that they're like 22-year-old kids sometimes.
They're human. That's
they're human beings. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, man. They're human. We all know what pressure feels like. It doesn't feel great at times, but yeah. The Chiefs. I will say. Let me say this, BJ. I know the Chiefs are favored. I know the Chiefs are probably expected to win this game. I am going to predict momentarily that they will win the game. But also, I think Chiefs fans can't forget how young this team is. Yes, you have Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. They've been through it all. Guys, half the roster is so stinking young that in order to, you know, hey, settle in. Hey, we've been here before. We've done this. Yeah, we're good. That's right. We do have Patrick Mahomes. It would be nice if they had a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. Just to be like, hey, not to get overconfident, but to remind the young guys, if you do your job, they're going to put points on the scoreboard, right? Like, hey, I know it's not sexy, Isaiah Pacheco, but if you get 4 yards of carry, it's going to lead to points consistently. Yeah. Same for Trick McDuffie. Like, hey, we're not asking you to get interceptions. We just ask you to be in coverage, do your responsibilities. Yeah. If you got a tackle to be made, go and make the tackle or help somebody make the tackle. You know, for George Karlaftis, hey, it'd be cool if you got a postseason snack. If you got a postseason sack, that is not required for you today. What is required for you is to rush the lane correctly, not Trevor Lawrence get out of the pocket, not let him extend plays, get your hands up like we talked about earlier. Like, it's all the simple stuff for the young guys to do so that the great players can do the great things. But if the Chiefs struggle early on, part of that is going to be, hey, they need to get this part of the experience because it's a lot of rookies or a lot of second-year players who just haven't had to do this a ton at the highest level with a team that has nothing to lose.
All right, before we get Nate's prediction in this game, just a quick reminder to anybody who's listening or watching that might want to attend this game on Saturday. Thanks to our partners at Tickets for Less. They gave us a couple of tickets to the game on Saturday, along with a parking pass and 2 VIP tickets to the pregame tailgate at the Tickets for Less tailgate that we are raffling off those 2 tickets. You can buy raffle tickets through the KC Sports Network Venmo. One raffle ticket is $10, or for $50, you get 8 chances to win these tickets. We're raffling them off Wednesday night. All of the money that we raise is going to the KCSN Foundation. Last year, we raised enough money to spend or to send more than 1,000 meals to Kansas City's homeless through our partnership with Hope Faith Ministries in downtown Kansas City. So we're trying to do that again this year by raffling off a couple of playoff tickets. If you want to see the Chiefs and Jags, you can check our social accounts or just look us up on Venmo. That's how you send the money. It's all tax deductible. The foundation is a 501c3, so we'll take care of you there. Chance to win tickets, chance to go see the Chiefs, help your community in the process. But Nate, I want to know what you think's going to happen, because the line, I just checked it since the time we started recording. It's still at 8.5. The over under though is 53 points now. Started at 51.5, has gone up to 53. So high scoring affair is what's being predicted here. They probably got the same news that we did, that Doug Peterson's going to do everything he can to put a few points on the board with some trick plays. But how do you see this one playing out, Nate?
So the Chiefs lead the league in scoring, 29.2 points. I'm going to give them a little postseason bump. I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to score 31 points in this game. Now the trick becomes, where do I have the Jaguars? I have the Chiefs winning. I want to give the Jaguars 24 to 26 points, somewhere in that range. Now, part of that could be because Doug goes for 2 at some point in the game. You also have to consider that as well. So maybe they go for 2 and they don't succeed. I think I'm leaning towards Chiefs 31, Jaguars 26. It's not a usual score, but this is not a usual game for the Jaguars. So I'm informing you to bet the Jags from a money line standpoint. But I do think the Chiefs will win, and I do think the Chiefs will score 31 because I think you have to have confidence having a week off. Andy Reid with the bye week. We haven't even discussed that just because that's such a known fact. Patrick Mahomes getting a chance to sort of look at the Jaguars for 2 weeks, essentially. The coaching staff knows, like, here are the odds and how it's broken out that, we could play this team versus that team. I wouldn't have told him last week to look at a ton of Miami Dolphins film. I would have told him to look at a lot of Jags and Chargers film, teams you had already played this season. So with that in mind, I think the Chiefs – I'm confident that the Chiefs will score points. It's just a matter of can the Jaguars keep pace.
Yeah, I would personally, and I'm not the best bettor in the world, but I would hammer that over because I think the Chiefs offense is going to roll. I think they're going to put up at least 40 points. I'm saying either 38 or 41. It really comes down to whether Butker hits that second field goal. And the reason why, Andy Reid off a bye. This will be the first game that Kadarius Toney will have been with the team longer than 3 days, that all of the offensive weapons are available, assuming McCole Hardman is good to go. McCole Hardman did not play in this game the last time.
Correct.
And that whole stretch where we said the Chiefs offense really weren't doing well, they were winning, but they weren't beating bad teams by as many points as we thought. I remember talking through those, and you and I talked about it a lot, that so much of Andy Reid's playbook wasn't available. Sky Moore running those jet sweeps and all of that pre-snap motion and some of those end around and getting the defense to move horizontally didn't threaten a defense as much with Sky Moore as it does with McCole Hardman, as it does with Kadarius Toney. Talk about those guys inside the red zone. I just think this offense, with the extra week, with everybody back and healthy, I think they're going to roll. They put up almost 500 yards of total offense last time they played the Jags.
They did.
And I know the Jags are playing better. The Jags' strength is their defensive front. If the Chiefs can get the protection and give Mahomes time, the strength of the Jags' defense is not their secondary. That is the weak part of what they want to do. I think the Chiefs' offense, there's too much firepower there. And to your point earlier about the trick plays and trying to keep up with the Chiefs get a little bit of a lead. The Jaguars press, they're going to make some mistakes. Trevor Lawrence is going to give these guys an opportunity to make some plays. I just don't think he's quite ready for this moment yet with some of the pressure numbers. And even watching the game against the Chargers, a lot of the impressive plays, more impressive again, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones. I keep saying Zay Flowers. Zay Jones. Getting ready for this one. But final thoughts, Nate, before we let all these good people get back to working and the things they need to be doing throughout the day.
In my opinion, this is the moment. This is the moment. Everything's been built for Chris Jones to have a career year. He is in the midst of it. I know it's 15.5 sacks in a 17-game season from a 16-game season back in 2018, but he is a much better player now than he was in 2018. And look, this is Patrick Mahomes is obviously the best quarterback. He's going to win the MVP award. Travis Kelce is a Hall of Famer. He has already been certified in terms of his iconic legacy in the league. This is for Chris Jones. Like, I want to keep that in the forefront of Chief fans' minds. This is the time for Chris Jones to put his name on the Ring of Honor. I mean, you could already argue that it's already there, but the whole defense is centered around him. He needs to be their best player on defense. and they are 2 games away from the Super Bowl. It sounds so easy to say, and it's so close in front of them. But in order to get there, Chris Jones is going to have to continue to have the season he's had already, which means he'll have to have a better, sort of dominance in the postseason than he has shown previously. So if he plays well on Saturday, I have a lot more confidence in this team going into the AFC Championship if he plays well and they win.
Yeah. All right. That's all we've got for this episode of KCSN Update presented by our friends at DraftKings. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. Please hit that like and subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcasting platform, and leave a review if you got an extra few minutes and you feel passionately one way or another. We appreciate the positive ones, but let us know if you think there's something that we should be doing better. We know there's a lot of great places to get Chiefs content. We appreciate KCSN being one of those stops for you. And special thanks to Nate Taylor. Catch his work at The Athletic, keeping Chiefs fans up to date, informed, and kind of knowing what's going on behind the scenes. As one of several great people who cover the Chiefs. Chiefs fans are very lucky in that way as well. So appreciate everybody for hanging out. We'll see y'all next time.